It's like every other one, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, well, we're on now, Wade. So,
All right.
hello, everyone. Hello, America.
That's
Hopefully,
right.
Wade's compliance officers are watching.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, my name's Jordan Pence. My company's Advisors Resource Company, and I have Wade Chessman of Chessman Wealth Strategies here today.
That's right.
Thanks for joining me,
You're
Wade.
welcome.
Wade, I've known probably really since I got into this business, and actually, you're probably one of the first people my father introduced me
Oh,
to,
really? Oh, that's cool.
believe it or not.
Okay.
And so, anyways, Wade, I'd say been a great client and friend of ours, and worked together closely. And I think Wade, you have one of the more impressive businesses that I've
Well, I
seen out
appreciate
there,
that.
especially from a standpoint of I don't know, your professionalism and organization and all that stuff. That's why I wanted to have you
Okay.
on. So
Appreciate it.
maybe before we get started, it'd be a good idea to tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your business.
Well, let's see. I started my firm back in 2004. I was working for a big wirehouse firm, Edward Jones, and
So tell me about the marketing strategy
yeah,
there.
and I just really wanted to do more planning focused.
Yeah.
And at the time, they were 100% commission, and they really weren't focused on planning. I think things changed for them,
So what were
but
you mainly selling back then?
just mutual funds.
A shares, whatever you
Yeah,
could.
mutual funds. I did life insurance. I think I was one of the top long-term care guys in the whole nation. But
Really?
the reason was is because I came, unlike a lot of guys that were there, I came from a financial planning firm. My first 5 years in the business, I worked for a financial planning firm in Dallas
As like a planner or
as
as
an
like,
apprentice. But
okay.
I got my CFP, so I was, at that time, a lot of guys at Jones didn't have their CFP. So I took a more planning centric approach to what I was doing. So hence, life insurance was more part of what we did, long-term care. But I really wanted to do more planning. I wanted to be independent. I wanted more freedom. I wanted to be able to have a Christmas party, not a holiday party. One of the things about our firm is that as you know, the three advisors there were all part of Kingdom Advisors. We're all
Mhm.
certified Kingdom Advisors. The faith part of our practice.
So for those who don't know, tell them a little bit about Kingdom Advisors.
Kingdom Advisors is a national organization started by a guy named Ron Blue, who's an amazing guy. Larry Burkett. Larry Burkett passed away, but he was a kind of the one of the initial guys that started Christian Financial Radio. He was the precursor to what's his name? The big guy.
No, Ramsey.
Ramsey.
Dave Ramsey.
Dave
Yeah.
Ramsey. So he was the Dave
Dave
Ramsey before,
Ramsey.
but
Yeah.
it was more, he's kind of like the Faith Fi. Faith
Hmm.
Fi has a radio show now. It is more
Are you
like,
on the radio?
no, no.
Okay.
Faith Fi is
Oh.
Rob West, who's the president of Kingdom Advisors or was. He does that show now. It's nationally syndicated. Anyway, so Kingdom Advisors is just an organization of mainly financial planners, but anybody can join. I think CPAs can join. And it's designed to help us practice and put into place biblical principles into our financial planning practice. So, those that have a biblical worldview, how do we incorporate that into our day-to-day practice? So that's what Kingdom Advisors is all about. So that I wanted to leave Edward Jones, start my own deal, be more independent. So
Well, you're definitely you're more of a kind of, I don't know, I guess maybe leader rather than follower when it comes
well,
to,
yeah, and that was part of it. I just, I didn't like working for the man, and I
yeah.
wanted to kind of do my own deal. And
Yeah, I'm not a very good employee either.
yeah, I'm not a
So
very good employee and Sean that works with me, he would say that too.
yeah, right. Yeah. I
Yeah.
could totally see that. I could definitely see that. So, I mean, over the years, you've, I mean, built up a substantial practice, I'd say. And what do you think's been like the main driver behind your growth and your success and so forth? And I know I didn't give you this as
No, it's
a
okay.
good question, but just kind of thinking, I think that's interesting for people that may not have as big of a practice or maybe trying to grow their practice. How do you get to where you're at?
Well, I mean, it's been over time. I'd say the way I've always thought about it is I like to grow. It's more fun. If you're not growing, you're really growing backwards because there's always going to be attrition in your practice. There's
Certainly.
going to be people pass away, there's things happen. So if you're not growing, you're gonna wither at some point. But I've always been the idea of growing in a calm and thoughtful way. It's not growth at all costs. It's not growth that and have no life. It's been more about just building relationships with centers of influence and things like that, so that we can work together. So it's just been a real slow, I'd say slow but steady growth pattern. Every company kind of goes through these S curves where you kind of get to this
Yeah.
top and you're either going to stay there.
So ceiling of complexity,
Ceiling of
right?
complexity. I did strategic coach and all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
I might have reached another ceiling of complexity right now. I don't know, but what we've tried to do is just work smarter, work more efficiently. And then another thing that we did that really helped us grow is about 5 years ago, I gave up my RIA and affiliated with the Carson Group out of Omaha.
Which a lot of people would think that maybe that's like they gotta feel like, especially guys like you and I feel like they gotta do it themselves, and to give up their
Yeah.
RIA for growth is kind of
Well, the
a
thought,
unique way of doing it.
the idea was, we didn't enjoy doing compliance. We didn't really love the day-to-day investment stuff. The portfolio rebalancing, keep just all the stuff you have to do, the billing.
It's a lot of responsibility.
It is. And so what we decided, I had been part of the Carson Group coaching program for a long time. Ron Carson said, "Hey, I'm going to build this infrastructure where you can hook onto our chassis and we'll do a lot of the back office stuff for you. We'll do the technology and things like that." Now you're giving up some revenue for that,
Sure.
but it's been a lot more freeing in that we focus more of our efforts on planning relationships and less on the day-to-day stuff. So it's not perfect, but I think that's been another big step in helping me grow, but also have more flexibility. Because at this point in my career, it's not, I want to grow, it's fun. I just have that personality, but it's at this point, for me, it's more about freedom,
Yeah.
time, not working on Fridays, taking a month off in the summer, stuff like that.
Yeah, which I think we talked about it last time. You usually go up to Colorado, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Already got it booked.
Yeah, I'm kind of jealous.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Well, I hate Dallas in the summer.
yeah,
Really?
Dallas and Texas in general have a lot of positive
Yes,
qualities.
they do.
But,
About 10 months out of the year, they're there.
about 10 months. It's like right now,
2 months of living hell.
yeah, it's end of March, it's like 75
Beautiful.
degrees. It's fantastic. Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
not complaining.
Um, I was gonna ask you a follow-up. Well, no, I was just gonna comment. Sort of giving up revenue to gain back freedom and time is kind of an interesting.
Yeah, and really, in the long run, I think we probably gained more revenue than we lost, just because we're doing less of that stuff. You need less people,
Sure, yeah.
and then B, you're not as focused on that, so you can focus on other things.
The more important things,
Right.
Planning for the clients, getting clients, treating them
Seeing them, building relationships, less worrying about the day-to-day stuff.
Yeah.
And the other thing is our industry is consolidating quite a bit.
It sure
It's
is.
harder to be kind of where we are. We're not huge, we're not small, we're somewhere in that middle. So, it's hard. I felt like this gives me additional resources behind the scenes.
Yeah, nobody really has to know about it. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe they do, and it just appears as part of your thing.
Yeah, I talk to people about it because I think people now want to know,
is it just the guy in the office, right?
What if you die?
Yeah.
What if you get sick?
Your wife will be okay because you got enough insurance. But
that's right. But there's a succession plan in place.
Right. Yeah, beyond just your staff members.
Right.
Yeah, because those, who knows what will happen.
Right. And it's a great way if you don't want to fully sell out your firm and you want to either sell none and just have someone take over some of the stuff you don't like, then to me, that was a way to do it. So that helped with the.
Yeah, and I guess rather than hiring additional people, which in theory
you could do, and it could be cheaper, but
there's a lot of
headaches. Right? Yeah, that's how I thought of it.
Yeah, that's pretty smart, Wade. I think that's very forward thinking. I again going a little bit off script here, but one thing that you've always included other professionals in is your
That's
expert
right.
team meetings. And I thought that was always, you ran those very well in that you did the same thing every time. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that
Yeah,
and how you incorporate that into,
yeah. I
uh,
mean, these aren't even on the sheet.
I know, but we started talking. I'm sorry.
No, we can go off the sheet. I don't
Yeah,
care.
yeah, yeah.
So the one thing that I decided when I left the evil empire of Edward Jones was that, I wanted to do more planning. And they do planning. I'm just kidding. But one of the things I want to do is planning. I
Right.
also wanted to have a process, a repeatable process. And they talk a lot about that in Strategic Coach.
They do.
So we have a process, we call it the Smart Choices Wealth Management Solution that goes along with our mission statement. And part of that process is once a quarter or so, we'll bring in a team of experts, CPA, insurance specialist, state planning attorney. I think the last time we brought in a mortgage person.
Oh, that's a
We
good
brought
idea.
in
Yeah.
a P&C person. I
Yeah.
mean, just different professionals. And we go around the room, we brainstorm about the client situation. And, not every single client we have is super, super duper complicated, but it's more weighty sometimes when you go back to the client and say, here's some things to consider based on the feedback from our professional group. And it has more, I think, more, like I said, weight to it. It gives clients, it sometimes will get them to spur them into action. And it gets people like you a chance to meet CPAs and attorneys and things like that.
Well, it's fantastic. And furthermore, I think it's always really nice because you run them basically the same way every time.
Yeah, it's the same process every single time. One of the things that is on the list, that we're gonna talk about.
We are gonna talk about that.
Is processes. And
Exactly.
I wish that I could give credit for the processes that we have, but it's all Sean.
Yeah.
Sean and I are the yin and the yang.
I think I need a Sean.
He's been with me for a long time.
He has.
Yeah, he owns part of the company and he's done a great job. But his background is engineering. He's an engineer by trade.
Oh, I
And
should
I
have
forget, I think it's
guessed that.
electrical or I don't know what he was, something. And so the idea was, let's have systems in place so that things happen the same way each time. So when someone comes in our office, it's not different every single time. It's the same, relatively the same process that we follow. At least there is a process, and part of that is what we call the expert team.
So speaking of processes
Yeah.
and finally getting back onto subject
We can
here.
talk about whatever you
Um, I wanted to do this to talk about systems and processes. And I guess when you take a step back, how have you built these all out? And what was the catalyst to do it? And then furthermore, how does it help you keep things running smoothly?
Well, as I mentioned, we're part of the Carson group, but they don't really do anything. They do a lot of stuff in the background, like compliance, and they provide an investment platform and things like that, but they don't really
Yeah,
do anything in the day to day.
Yeah, that's not really a process of how you're meeting with clients or how
Or
you're treating
getting things done.
Right, yeah.
So one of the things that we've done over time and is built processes so that when things happen, we don't just do it fly off the cuff and get it done. So for example, when a client, like I just did this yesterday, a client came in and needed some term life insurance. So I filled out a form, and part of that form then sends you guys an email
Mm-hmm.
automatically.
Mm-hmm.
And with all the pertinent information that you need to get us a quote.
Sure.
Quote came back, went over it with the client, fill out another form.
What's good about that is that hopefully
Yeah,
our process works.
Your process works. It goes to Chris. I think we've got him copied on that. Then the client said, yes, I want to do it. Then we fill out another form, and then it kicks off the next process.
I love it.
And then not only that, it also, we use a thing called Zapier. Probably familiar with that.
Very familiar with Zapier.
So what it basically does, as far as I understand it, is it just helps systems talk to each other. So part of that process kicks off a case in Salesforce, which is our CRM.
Right.
And then we're able to track it that way. So
Wow.
most of the things we do now, we use that type of process so that we don't, like when someone calls in for money, rather than just putting a task out to the ops
You
team,
have like a case that needs
we
to
have a
get
process
closed.
you fill out. It talks to somehow magically, it talks to um, Salesforce, a case is created, follow-up items are created. So we have a process for almost everything, a backdoor raw, all the different things you have to do now. With
Wow.
the DOL now, every time you do a transfer of an IRA or a rollover, you've got to do a different thing. So we've got a process for that. So, we use Calendly, we use AI for meeting in our meetings now
Oh, that's a good
all,
idea.
all of which is just part of the process, just to be more efficient and things like
Are you
that.
talking about virtual meetings or in like if you were in a face-to-face
Yeah, we
meeting with a
use, we
client?
use, Zox.
Really?
There's another one out there called Jump. But Zox, what it does is it come, we, in a,
Because there's nothing worse than, and not
no,
to
I
interrupt
agree.
you, but there's nothing worse. I've written down all these notes. It's like, great, that's fantastic. I'm gonna put them over here and nothing ever happened.
No, we don't, so when the client comes in, we have Zox running, we just turn it on, records the meeting.
And I'm assuming you tell the client, or I guess you probably don't. I
I
don't know.
mean, yeah, I think we do, but no one ever has a problem with it.
Yeah, why would they? If
And then
it's
when you do it on Zoom, you can see it's called Wade's Assistant.
right.
I think Tim wanted to call it Skynet. And I was like, I don't think people are gonna appreciate that too much. But so yeah, it's running in the
Especially
background.
considering it's AI.
Yeah. And not everybody knows who Skynet is, but it's from
I know,
Terminator.
I know
But anyway, so it runs and you can train it. Like, for example, one of the things we ask our clients is if there's anything we could be praying for them for, any concerns they have when they're going on their life. And so somehow, and again, I didn't do this, but you can go in and kind of teach this program things. The other day we had a meeting and it was a meeting that Sean had, and somewhere in the beginning of the meeting, the middle and the end, this hour-long meeting, there was things that were brought up, but Sox was smart enough to encapsulize it in one little paragraph.
Wow.
It somehow knew it and
Yeah,
put it
yeah.
all in one paragraph, even though it happened three different places in the meeting.
Wow.
So, so we use,
Yeah, AI is pretty incredible.
so we use that, we use Calendly, we use Zox. We use Zox, which is the AI, we use Calendly, we use systems, everything, not everything, but almost every process we have has a system.
So let me ask you this because this is interesting to me because, well, for our business, I mean, I, I've been doing a lot of reading about systems, been trying to implement it more and more for our business.
Right.
And, one of the challenges is doing the one-offs all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, and then you have this concern, did it get done or not? Did it not get done?
Right.
You wake up in the middle of the night and say, oh crap, that might have not been completed. And I'm sure there's a lot of other advisors out there that we work with that probably have the same challenges
Oh,
because
yeah,
I
for
mean, we're
sure.
all running these small businesses where you don't have I mean, it's hard.
It is.
So when you open up one of these cases, you basically have somebody that's keeping track of it the whole time,
Yeah, so one of the things we do, instead of doing everything task oriented.
which is one of the things we do a lot of, is like
Not
task
task, but
oriented.
we try to have most of the stuff we do tied to a case. So that the case is the kind of the overarching thing, and within the case, there's tasks. But one of the big things that Sean really harps on is using the case comments section. So, for example, I think this is one of your questions earlier down the line, but how it's so great later on down the line. Let's say client CPA calls, hey, did you guys do a Roth conversion for this client? I mean, 5 years ago, I would have had to go, I don't remember. Let me go pull up. I would have gone to Schwab. I would have gone to Schwab or something
And
and
look
looked
at the
statements.
transaction history.
But all I have to do now is just look at the cases. There's a case called Roth conversion. I go in there, and that's not perfect, but I go in there and I look at the case comments and all the notes and everything, and then I can recall information without having to. So that's why we try to utilize most of the things we do via cases. Like a client called in today and wanted to make a sub contribution. If he calls in 2 weeks from now, I'm not gonna remember that. But I can go look in the case we have a case called SEP contribution.
And it may or might not have been completed, and then
Yeah, and that happens, and you can go back to rather than, one of the things we try to avoid is, going by someone's office and asking them a question.
yeah.
It just interrupts our flow. So we use case comments and tasks within the case to then gather more information. But what we try to do is
So instead of like, for me,
walking over to someone's office.
yeah, like, hey, did you do that?
Yeah. I mean, I'll still do that sometimes, but really the best thing to do is
If it's in the case and
look in the case.
yeah.
And sometimes you'll see nothing's been done. And that's
And then you
usually a problem.
Yeah, you bring it to the attention of
You
the
bring it to
person.
the attention of the person and say, hey, what's going on? But instead of asking them, where are we on this process? I just go look. Now, if I don't find a case or I don't know what's going on, then that's usually
an
it's
issue.
yeah, and usually most problems that we have are a breakdown of just people not following the process.
That's the importance of the process.
You gotta follow the process. So,
Wow.
it's kind of like working out, I don't love working out all the time, but I like the results. So sometimes I'm like, to me, it would, the way I operate, it would be easier just to do it.
That's me too. And sales, and I think all
Everybody
salespeople-
that's sales oriented, that has that more about that drive, that
Yeah.
get things done type of thing.
I think it's like a type A.
But I've had to really train myself to say, in the short run, that's probably true, but in the long run, I could have just done that SEP contribution for that guy.
And gotten it out of your hair.
But now there's gonna be a record of it,
Mhm.
and we'll have notes, hopefully, and again, it's not perfect, but the idea is to have systems in place so that it's more work on the front end, but I promise it saves time in the long run. And there's a lot less back and forth between having to go, like in the old days, I was just me and Sean and the assistant, we would just yell back and forth and it was great. But we just can't do that anymore.
Right.
And so, so anyway, that's how the systems have helped quite a bit. And I don't have anything to do with them as much, but other than just following. And they've worked out so well that Carson has come to us and Sean, and they have a whole team now. They're working on building their own using Zapier and stuff like that.
Wow.
So hopefully we'll be able to add some value to that.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I'm not on that team.
Sean
Sean is.
Yeah,
They wouldn't let me near it.
So, yeah, I mean, we've talked about a lot of different things, but I mean, you mentioned the SEP thing. Is there anything where this has really made a big difference from like a client perspective or from like your practice perspective or anything like that? I mean, other than what you've already mentioned.
I mean, I thought about that. The biggest thing that it's done is made us more efficient, B, less prone to error. And then
that's a huge impact that's immeasurable though.
Yeah, and every Thursday we have workflow Thursday where we get together as a team, we review workflows. Sean's constantly, trying to make them better. He's figured out a way where if you put the account number in the form with no dashes or something, somehow now it'll figure out what household it belongs to and automatically, we used to have to do that manually, so stuff like that. I'd say the biggest thing.
So Sean's like a huge tech guy.
Yeah, I think he's really into being
Efficient.
and getting things done. I mean, he's just and we use EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, and they're all about, instead of going back and forth to people and interrupting their day, using issues as a way to get things done. I'd say the biggest thing that it's done for us, again, going back to what we talked about earlier, is the fact that when people call up, and this happens all the time, and I'm sure it's even worse in your paper-driven, low-tech insurance.
Well, I wish,
mind-numbing.
Yeah, like you should see our CRM. It doesn't talk to anything, and so it's a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, I think that's one good thing about Salesforce is that there's a lot of integrations. But
there's a ton.
But there's so many, it's
overwhelming. Yeah,
and I don't have anything to do with that. But one of the biggest things it's done is really made it so much better when you have to go back in the past and find things. Whereas before it would be a guessing game, or you'd have to search and it would take forever. Now, most of the time, like for example, a client sends me an email that says, hey, can you send my tax documents to my CPA? Well, guess what? We have a process for that.
Dang.
We don't just do it. So
Dang.
instead of just doing it, I just went and looked in their record in their Salesforce, and I looked at their cases, and I noticed we had not filled one out for 2025. So I filled one out and that kicks off a process. And then what Sean did recently is he built, you've heard of that dishwasher rule, right? Like if you empty the dishwasher and you don't tell your wife, then you don't get any credit for it. So what we do now, one of the things we added in the process.
I make sure I leave that thing open until
Hey,
he comes
hey,
downstairs.
Killing it. But one of the things we do now is again, it's automated.
Right.
As soon as we do it, we send an email to the client now saying, hey, we sent these to your CPA.
You know what? I hate pointless emails, but I personally, when something gets done like that, I don't even necessarily have to be copied on the original.
You
but
want to close
just the
out.
fact that, hey, this has been sent to whoever, right?
Well, we want to know, hey, this is value add. So we're always trying to think.
Otherwise, we would never get credit and the taxes would get done and it'd be.
They would never think about it.
Yeah, I know.
And we also send out, when we do qualified charitable distributions and different things like that, we send out a tax letter to the CPA. And that's gotten somewhat automated. So it's just being more efficient. I think now that Carson is going to be involved with it, it'll probably take it to another level because they have like a enterprise version of what's it called again?
Zapier.
Zapier.
Yeah.
They have an enterprise version of that, and they're going to be able to maybe take it to another level. But that's one of the things that's really helped us is just having a process.
Yeah.
And sometimes it gets broken.
No,
One of the processes we have is when a prospect comes to the website and fills something out, we had a fairly large prospect do that and nothing really happened because it's something that broken within Zapier. I mean, eventually I was able to call them, but we fixed it so that now when someone goes to the website and fills anything out, a task is created, an email goes out. I mean,
yeah, bells go off.
Bells go off and things happen. I mean, because the thing is 99% of them are junk, but that 1% isn't. So anyway, that's been a big deal, having the process. Now, it doesn't do me any good to have all these processes if you don't have clients and you're not out marketing. But I mean, we have clients, we have lots going on, and I'm less worried about adding on new businesses than I was 10 years ago. I mean, I want to, I'm working toward it, but it's more about at this stage managing what we already have and being more efficient.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense, and it's well, if you were growing as well, it'd be even that more important to have a good process.
Yeah, I mean, the more growth you have, it's even more important because then you got to manage. We have a process for transfers.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. You have a great process person, which is I mean, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it's huge to have. You got to have it.
Yeah, I really need to think about that. So yourself, like we're both kind of sales driven people.
Yeah.
How do you keep yourself on top of it? Do you have like, okay, this is what I'm going to do every day, or a list of tasks or a list of cases that you're supposed to take care of? Or
well,
how do you say,
they don't, I've really told them that I don't want a lot of tasks. I'm down to 10 tasks today.
Really?
I don't want cases. I don't want tasks. I don't want to, I have some obviously, but I've really tried to remove myself from the day-to-day.
Like Sally needs a withdrawal.
Yeah. I mean, I still will fill out forms to get things done like I did for that SEP.
Right.
Even that I don't like doing. So that part I'm trying to take as much off of me. That's not what I want to do.
So your role is showing up for the review meetings.
Showing up for the review meetings, meeting people, going to lunch,
shaking hands, kissing babies, as they say.
Yeah, meeting with centers of influence, CPAs, people like that. Working with our young advisor to get him up to speed. And so, I'm not, it's a shock that I always remind people I was an assistant for 5 years. I mean, I only lost one check. I mean, I wasn't that great of an assistant, but I was really good with the relationships.
You only lost one check. That's not good.
One cashier's check. It was real fun. So anyway, I'm not as involved day to day anymore on the tasks. I still have them, but it's a lot. I've really reduced that so I don't have to deal with the data. And that's not my strong point.
No, and I don't think any salesperson would agree that their strong point is, making sure the checks get to the right.
I mean, that's one thing that Edward Jones is really smart about, I don't know how they do it now, but when I started, the first thing that you did is you got an assistant before you made any
Yeah,
money. Cause they understood, you're better off
outselling.
outselling, they don't mow your own lawn, you'd be better off working on a Saturday, things like that.
Yeah, you know what's funny about that is we redid our garden, right? And I had like some sprinklers and I just needed to move some of them. Well, I got the yard dug up and then it came to like the plumbing work. I'm like, crap, I should have just paid somebody to
Yeah.
do this. This is
I
a
mean,
big
some things,
mistake.
it just makes more sense to
Outsource.
outsource, so you can do the things that you're better,
Exactly. No,
your
no.
highest and best use.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. So, I guess last question. What's the best tool you have?
Yeah, I saw that question. I mean, I think one of the big game changers has been, and most people are using this now, I think, is something like Calendly,
Yeah.
where, if someone wants to schedule with me, they can just go to chatwithwade.com, which really is just a website that I bought that takes them to Calendly. We use Calendly for our review meetings.
That's smart.
Um,
So what happened? What's the process if they don't book the review meeting?
well, we have a process for that. If they don't book the review, then Sharon calls them. We send out an email, we send out a video. It's time for the reviews. We do them in batches now.
Will you have a custom video for each person or is it
No, it's
just
just
a
a video. It
generic?
says, here's how it works.
Okay.
Then they get the email with the scheduling link, and if they don't do it, then Sharon calls them a couple times, sends them a text with compliance approved technology.
Yeah.
Sends them a text. I think she calls.
So it'll text them the calendar link probably.
Yeah, hey, it's time to schedule review. Then she calls, and then if they don't come in, then we're required to send them a letter. Although we have some new technology because of Zox that will allow us,
Which is the AI thing.
which is the AI thing, which will allow us to do that electronically now, where so it's still a review, but it's just done electronically rather than having to mail them out a big packet.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, that Zox is amazing. Sean's in there playing around with it, but you can train it to recognize people that have been in the meetings and tie it to their Salesforce record. And I think what it's going to do, and eventually it's going to have a way to give you, because one of the part of the process that we have for our reviews is we go back and look at last year's notes and see what's going on. I think it'll do that automatically for us. But I'd say Calendly is a big game changer.
Yeah.
Just because it takes a lot of the
booking aspect.
Yeah, and especially like missed calls and phone tag. I always just send people a link to my 15-minute call.
Dude, I mean, I'll be in 4 meetings in a day, and then it's like, oh crap, I gotta call Wade back. He's got that big case he's working on.
Yeah.
Stop calling you voicemail.
You're not going to get, and that's impossible to get rid of completely.
It's a challenge.
But if you're really, trying to get a meeting scheduled, it's a lot easier to let them use the link. So I'd say that one's been a pretty big game changer for us.
I think you're right, and I've always tried the way of saying, okay, does Tuesday at 10 a.m. or 1 p.m. work
Yeah,
for you?
I hate
But
that.
I know, then you're going this back and forth. It's better than saying, well, what time next week?
Yeah,
works for
to
you?
me,
But
when people do that to me, I say, well, guess what? Here's the link. Pick a time that works.
yeah, that's smart.
And then you just have to you have to manage Calendly. You have to let Calendly know that,
You're out. Or
yeah, like I'm trying not to work on Fridays now, so those are blocked off. Or during surge, our review time, certain meetings are blocked off. And sometimes, if someone says, well, I couldn't find a good time, then we can work around it.
Right.
But the idea is you've got to manage that. It's a wonder if we get anything done. There's so much to this business. Now that I think about it, this is overwhelming, all the stuff we have to do.
Well, at least you have processes around it all.
Yeah,
I mean, that's impressive. It really is impressive. I think
Well,
it's fantastic.
thank you. I know there's a lot of offices out there that are even bigger than us that really still use a lot of tasks. And I don't know how they do it. They do it. I just couldn't do it.
I mean, the way that you've described it is even more impressive than I thought. So thanks for
Yes.
your input. And I think it's just exceedingly important. The more books you read, if you read about anything in business, basically it comes down to like, do you have a process for that? And are you getting your people to follow it? And then how are you pulling the metrics
But
out?
I think it'll help you run more efficiently, because one of the things, one of the books I read a long time ago is a book called Profit First.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really more about, why do you own a business? I mean, the reason we have our business isn't just to make money. I mean, we want to help
Right.
people. Our mission statement is to help you be a better steward of the resources God provided to you. But in the end, we are in there to make money. So I think one of because we run a little bit more efficiently, our profit margins are way above normal average. But
Probably so. Yeah,
yeah,
probably
I
so.
think they are, from what I can tell. And so we've been able to run, I think, a more lean and mean machine versus having it bloated with a bunch of extra people.
Yeah, no. I think you're 100% right. And I mean, furthermore, you can like make an assessment on whether someone's doing their job properly or not, right?
Yeah, you
Like,
can look.
okay,
Are they getting things done?
whoever's not getting all these things,
How long's the case taking?
yeah,
Things like
exactly.
that.
And that comes down to just how you're gonna monitor it. So anyways, Wade, I appreciate your time.
Pleasure.
I appreciate you coming on. I think this was great. And
Thank you.
I hope this gave a lot of people a lot of insight.
Yeah, hope so.
Thanks again.
Thanks a lot.